Hello, this is Mark, your Madison Cork Dork. Instead of going over a particular grape today, I will actually be going over how I became a Cork Dork and the steps that you can actually take to become one too. Um, so first and foremost, the seeds of my journey of becoming a Cork Dork, were planted at a young age. My father grew up in Paris, France, for the first 7 years of his life, and wine is a huge part of the French identity. Although my father didn't typically have, or pretty much didn't have, wine with his meals when I was growing up, the fact that there was something in the French blood that made wine as a part of it would eventually become a part of me. I was also raised Catholic, and though my parents wouldn't let me drink the wine, I knew that there was something spiritual that set wine apart from any other beverage. When I was in middle school, I believe it was sixth grade, my social studies class held a Renaissance fair. Instead of being a knight or doing something that required a lot of costume work, I went with a wine merchant. My parents emptied out a bottle of wine and filled it with water. And I don't recall them actually drinking the wine, but it clearly would have been a missed opportunity if they hadn't. Um, Ultimately, I became really good at geography and history during my time in middle school, and I went to both State Geography B and History Day, which reinforced interest in those subjects that I wanted to excel in. And I did exceptionally well in both of these areas in high school and went on to become a history major at Iowa State University to teach social studies, which I did for 3 years. But my journey started really taking off in 2015 when I got a part-time job in the wine and spirits department at a grocery store in Iowa. It was there that I started to learn some of the terms as well as making observations as to what people were buying based on the size of each section. So, for example, one of the things I noticed was that Cabernet Sauvignon section was a much larger section than the Merlot, which obviously meant that there was a larger demand for Cabernet and less so for Merlot. In fact, I also started learning terms like, for example, Cab is short for Cabernet Sauvignon, and Pinot is short for Pinot Noir as opposed to Pinot Grigio. Still don't know why there's that bias there. So from early 2017 to early 2019, I became a wine and spirits department head at a local grocery store, and that taught me how to analyze data and what people were buying and certain trends. But I would like to point out that I learned how to sell wine without actually knowing anything about wine, which is kind of not a very good position to be in. But you will find that in large grocery store chains that there is a virtual certainty that the person who's trying to sell you stuff really doesn't know what they're talking about. So this part of the journey is where you can learn most from my experience. So when I was in between jobs, I recognized that I knew more about beer than I did about wine. And with beer, it feels like it's kind of more narrow, and there's a fair amount of limitations. Um, so, knowing that I was deficient in my wine knowledge, I wanted to learn more about it. So, I did some research. I watched some videos on YouTube. One of the channels that's good to watch is Whitney Adams, and the other is Wine Folly. And I use those to expand my knowledge base. I also bought a book that I've been showing over and over again in these videos, Wine Folly Magnum Edition by Madeline Paquette. Fantastic read. It has all sorts of grapes and what is wine and regions, etc. And I also watched some documentaries on wine, in particular, the two that were very popular, Somm and Somm Into the Bottle. Somm goes over a journey of for people that are trying to become master sommeliers and the challenges that they face. And Somm Into the Bottle goes over like the history of wine. And so by learning that, watching those videos, you learn quite a bit. My knowledge base at that point was expanding, and I became quite confident that I could re-enter the workforce in the wine and spirits area, and I would get a job at World Market as a beverage department head. So here's where I started to drink wine and analyze it critically. I bought wine, and my wife Courtney would pair it with whatever was recommended on the Vivino app. And I cannot stress to you exactly how important this app is. It lets you track what wines you've had and where they're from. You can rate each wine, plus, you can make note of what you smell and taste and any additional comments you would like to add in your review of the wine. And I would also analyze wine based on body, smell, taste, acidity, alcohol levels, whether it was dry or sweet, and exactly how dry or how sweet was it, the level of tannin. I would have a notebook that I would write these things down, and I would put this information into the Vivino app. And then I bought a little booklet called 33 Bottles, which gives you a guide of how to rate and fill out wines and whatnot. So that's one way you can easily go about it. And I also bought wine books from particular countries and states. So, for example, I have a book that I read recently based on French wines, and I also have a book that I read before that based on California wines. So, wine, of course, is much more than taste. It's about land, it's about history, and geography. And as I had made mention earlier, those were subjects that I was always interested in. It's knowing that I personally won't go everywhere in the world. No one can. But I can taste what it's like to be there. I can, you know, I've never been to Spain. I don't think I really have any plans to, and life is short. But I know that by drinking Spanish wine, it's like I'm there. For less than $20, I can take a trip to Spain or France or Germany or Australia, etc. And I can be there. I mean, these grapes and these bottles are a specific part of a parcel of land. You can't get that with beer. You can't get that with liquor and stuff like that. Like, this is a specific area. So during this time of COVID-19, why not take a trip to Europe or Australia or New Zealand or what have you without going there at all? You can learn about wine by analyzing it, and it doesn't cost much to actually travel the world. So that's how you can become a cork dork. Read, watch YouTube videos, watch any documentaries, and obviously buy and taste and rate wines and make notes and stuff like that. So tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'll go back into my little lecture series, whatever you want to call it, and I'll be going over an Austrian grape that is flat out just plain awesome, and it's weird because the name is kind of weird, so that's a little bit of a hint should you want to do some research. Okay, this is Mark, your Madison Cork Dork. I encourage you to start your own journey if you haven't already. The world of wine is a lot bigger than anyone could possibly dream of. And it's something that you can experience just by buying wine for like $20 and you can already be in Spain. Anyways, have a good rest of your day. Mark, your Madison Cork Dork, out.